So welcome everyone. This is the third part in the Circle of Fifths series. And we've already gone over how to use the circle of fifths and how to transpose and all of that. And today we're going to go a little bit more in depth. As you can see, that we're going to go over the more of the note relations. As you can see right there below, we have the second, the fifth, the first, the fourth, the flat seven. So we'll go over more of those now. And using this circle of fifths to write songs. So this is such a great tool. Like every time I just play around with this thing, I come up with so many progressions, so many different ways to play songs. And I'm going to go over some of that today. I hope it gives you some ideas and helps you expand your songwriting, maybe come up with a few ideas yourself and how to play around with this thing. So let's get right into it. The notes around the circle. And don't worry too much about, I mean, you're not going to use like all the stuff down the bottom probably. I mean, you can, of course. There's no limits. Don't limit yourself, but it's just the closer the note is to the root note. So in this case, let's just take, for example, we have C, right? And I'll play you a little bit so I could show you, so you could see what it sounds like. But it's just what's more commonly used together. And we could say sounds nicer together, but there's no rules. Just that's the first thing to remember. Most important thing in songwriting, right, is there's no rules. The Don't be afraid to break any rules. These are just guidelines. They're not rules. Okay. So we have the one here. In this case, it's C. But remember, you can rotate this all the way around. So this circle of notes, you can rotate that, and these notes on the outside can stay where they are, and it changes, right? So it will change with the circle. Okay. So if you make, in other words, if you make the one, move the one over to here and move the whole circle around, then the five would be where the D is, and so on and so on and so on. I think you get that already from before. But just so you're clear, you can rotate this, but we're going to do it in C just so you have an easy understanding of it. So we have C. The five is to the left, as we discussed, and the four is to the right. So these are the two most commonly used chords with C, and they sound the most common. So they goes very nice together, very clean, very well. Then after that, we have the two, which is the D, and the B flat, which is the flat seven. So C, G, D, right? Still goes. So C still goes, and then C, F, and then B flat. So, okay. And then after that, we have C to A, which is the six. So C, six, A. Then we have C, E, the third. And that's the change that they use in Marvin Gaye uses. I've been really trying, baby. Right? Let's get it on. So it's C, E, F, G. You come up with so much stuff from that. See? So C, that's the one, the three, and then the four, the five. So there's a lot of progressions that work really well if you use the 1 4 5, but put another note in between, right? And that's used very often. Like the relative minor is another one. We've gone over that already, actually. Wagon Wheel uses that. So it's C, F, G, and A minor. The key is in G, so it's different notes, but it's the 1 4 5 in the relative minor. So this is how the notes go around the circle. And again, we're not going to use, because some of them don't go so well. They're not as commonly used. So like C to A flat, say, like so C and A flat. It doesn't really. It's so far away from the C that it doesn't really go that well. But there's no rules. Remember, you can use it if you want to. You can play around with it. Usually you're going to be sticking with more common notes. So like C, D, A, E, F. So this is just the way the notes are. This is the degrees of the scale. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we have like flat seven, flat third, flat six, flat two, flat five. So this is the way the degrees work around the circle. Now, so the only rule is there are no rules. And the point of this is for you to me to give you ideas. So I want to share some of the ideas that you can use to have ideas for writing songs, come up with ideas for writing songs using this circle of fifths. So idea one is you can move the one anywhere around the circle and the degrees remain the same for that root. So we already talked about this, but in other words, you can rotate the circle with CGF, that circle, or and the numbers stay the same, or you can rotate the numbers and the CGF circle stays the same. Okay? This is just to change keys and play around with different keys. That's just idea one. So you could take a progression and it's like transposing. So if I do, let's say C, E minor, right? So let's keep some more simple. C, F, G. And then you can transpose it. We went over this before. It was twist and shout. So we change it to DGA. So, or if we come down to the F, right, we'll go F, B flat, C. Or if you come all the way down to the E where it says 3, right, you can start at the E. That would be the root note. So E, A, B, like this. All right, so that's idea one. We already talked about how to transpose, so that's pretty similar to that. But just sometimes playing around with those different notes like that, the different keys, you get different ideas. For example, you can play something really deep, right? You can play, let's say, E A B, and well, shake it up, baby, now, twist and shout, right? That has a very different feel than, well, shake it up, baby, now, right? So the key can have a big effect on the feel of the song, whether you're screaming the song or singing very high or belting it, or you're singing more like a Johnny Cash even kind of feeling like, we'll shake it up, baby, now. Right? And there's no limits to what you can do. You can change all of this stuff, the tempo, everything. All right. So idea two, choose a progression and play with replacing a chord with its relative minor, which is inside the circle. We've discussed that already, right? So an example, let's do C, F, and G again. Easy, the easy one to do. So C, F, and G. You can change it to A minor, F, and G. So just replace the C with the relative minor. Right? Very different feels. So let's see. That's with the C. With the A minor, right? Sounds more like you could do a good rock solo over it. And let's play around with something else and just see what happens here. So this is how you do it. This is how I would suggest playing with it. C, F, and G. Now let's replace the F with the D minor, its relative minor. Okay? So C, D minor, and G, like this. Right? So that sounds to me like a progression that I would want to resolve back to the C. So I would go like this. Right? And you come up with so many things while you're doing this, playing around with it. So follow your intuition, follow your heart, follow your feeling, right? Your creativity. And let's try with the G now. So we have C, F, and G. And now let's replace the G with an E minor. Okay, it's relative minor. So C, F, E minor. And then see, you can kind of get a feeling for what comes next. So for me, in that progression, it feels like it would resolve if there was a G on the end. So you can add another note in, so another chord. So I would play C, F, E minor, G. So you're playing the relative minor, then the major, like this. Like that. So you get a feeling and there's no limit. You can add as many notes as you want. You add as many chords as you want. You can change it up and reverse. Okay. So let's do it with something a little different now. Let's try something different. So let's extend a little bit, right? Let's change the key. So we'll go, let's say G. Let's say the G is the one. And so if the G is the one, then we have, let's say the six, which would be E, right? So G, E, and G, E, and C, right? Which would be the four. So it's going to be the one, the four, and the six, like this. G, E, C. And that sounds like it needs another chord, right? D. Let's go with the D, which would be the five. And you'll see that a lot now. That's a really good way to make a four chord progression is to use the 1 4 5, but add another note, which would be like the sixth or whatever. You can use any of them, right? Whatever fits in there. But so this progression will be 1 4 5 6, right? So it'll be G, and then we'll go to the six, which is E, then C, which is the four, and D, which is the five. So now that E sounds like it would sound better minor. So let's use the relative minor instead, like this. And you know what that is now? Where, oh, where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me. All right. So many good ones. See, and that's just 1 4 5 relative minor, right? So many good songs use the same progressions. Don't worry about repeating. Don't worry about using the common progressions because you can change everything else around it. All right. So that's another idea of using the relative minor in whatever progression you're going to use, replacing some of the relative one of the chords with a relative minor and see what happens, see how it sounds. So the third idea is choose a progression and play with using different chord types, such as dominant seventh, major sixth, or if it's a minor chord, minor seventh, minor sixth, etc. You can use suspended chords, suspended second, suspended fourth, just replacing and changing. So example, we'll use same examples we've been using, right? We use the same progressions you could see. So C, F, and G, like this. So how would that sound if it was, let's say we use seventh chords, dominant seventh. So like this, C7, F7, G7, and resolve back to a regular C. So like this all together. Okay, and you can do that with any of them. So in other words, you just make a progression and then play around with changing the chord type. So in other words, here's like an A minor seven. So changing that, replacing that. Let's say C F. Let's say C A minor F G, like this. Now instead of playing replace the A minor with the minor seven. So like this. And we can go even more crazy and replace the G with the G7 with the dominant seventh now. So let's say C, A minor 7, F, G7, like this. Right? Beautiful. So there's no limits to this. Again, you just got to sit down and play with them. You'll come up with so many ideas. So just take one idea, play with it, keep messing around, pick a progression. You can even use a popular song that you know. It doesn't matter. Use that progression, transpose it to a different key, move it around the circle, take it to a different key so the root is different. It'll sound completely different. And then play with the ideas. Go use the relative minor, replace that progression with bring the minor somewhere in that major progression if you have a major progression. And if that doesn't work, if you have a minor already in there, then change up some of the chord types. Play with different chords types. So same notes, same major chords, but and minor chords, but using different chord types, like a seventh. And you can even do a suspended. Just play around with them. Try different chord types and see what happens. See what you come up with. Again, it's just playing around with it and let your creativity be stimulated, because that's what it is. It's not. It doesn't come from thinking. You can always tell the difference, and you could probably tell yourself the difference between coming up with like music that is written cold, right? That is written from theory, out of the mind. It's very technically good, but there's no heart in it, right? You can hear it, you can feel it, you can feel it. The simplest songs like have heart in them, right? That's why they're popular. That's why they're good. That's why you feel them, because they have that energy in it, right? It has to come from inside, right? It has to come from that creative energy, that creative flow. Don't try to figure it out intellectually, right? You might be able to write like a hit song that way, but that doesn't mean that it's from your heart, and that's what matters. The joy is in the creativity, is in the process of creativity, not in the final result, right? So don't worry about the result or where it's going, but focus on the process and letting that creative energy flow through you however it wants to. Don't be afraid to try stuff, experiment. It doesn't matter if it sounds good or not, just keep playing around, see what comes out. Doesn't all have to be a winner. And the final idea I have for you is play with larger progressions like 4 or 5 chord patterns, or play with mixing the same chords in different orders for verse and chorus. So we already went over 4 and 5 actually. So we did like C, F, C, A minor, F, and G, right? So that's an example of putting in 4 chords instead of using 3. And you could even use 5. So how would you do 5? You could do like C, F, G, E minor, A minor. So that's what I would do. I would do C, F, G, E minor, A minor, F, G, like this. And you can really mess around. You can do different timings and lengths and stuff, so you can mix it up and change it up. And then if you want to play with mixing the same chords in different orders, this is something that's used very, very lot in songs. So I'll give you an example. Again, C, F, and G. And then switch it, C, G, F for a different part of the song. So and you could use, that's 3 chords, but it's like you're playing 4 chords. So you go C, G, F, G, like that, and that would be like a different part of the song, right? So and then for the chorus, you can go to the F, start on the F, and then for the chorus, F, G, F, G, C, like this. Right? And then you just make a melody over it. So okay, I'll write you a song right now. Ready? So just messing around. But what I'm saying is that you can just start with any chord progression and then just mix the chords up. You can change it up in infinite ways, right? So there I just went back and played just two of the chords back and forth. So F and G, and then resolve back to the C at the end. And that makes it feel like a chorus. It's completely different feeling, completely different melody, completely different vibe, and different order of the chords. But it feels completely different. It makes it feel like a completely different part of the song when you're using the same chords. Okay. So experiment with that, play with that. It's such a beautiful process, and that's what I'm a fan of. Is doesn't matter what happens to the music. It matters that it comes through and the joy of that process. And anybody can write music, as long as you learn your instrument. Of course, AI can write music now pretty well too, surprisingly, sadly, but it is what it is. And I mean, it's not about it's not about that, right? But the joy of playing your instrument, the joy of writing the music, the joy of the creativity and coming through, and there has to be joy in it, right? We have to enjoy it, love it, and find something beautiful in it, right? Because the beautiful feeling of it coming through is what's wonderful. So I hope that inspires you and you have some ideas come from that, and you understand how to use the circle of fifths better for inspiration, right? It's not a tool to write songs for you, but it is a way to inspire you, because six of us will look at this circle right here with these ideas and come up with six different songs. So there's another factor to it. There's a lot more factors to songwriting and to music and to creativity that you can't see on a piece of paper and that you can't memorize, right? It's how much you let it come through. So it was a pleasure spending this time with you guys. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you found this helpful. Again, I may not have mentioned in this one, but in the other three series, the other three videos in this series, I mentioned there is in the description. There's a PDF of all of the slides, the major slides with the ideas on them from this and the other two videos in this series for the Circle of Fifths. And if you want to download that, it's free in the description, and it's right there. Just feel free to sign up, and you'll get it in your email, and everything will be there for you to quick look at it. Like this slide is in there, you can quick look at it for reference instead of having to go through the whole video again. So enjoy, have fun, happy practicing, and I'll see you next time. Take care.